Today on the Pro Talk podcast, it's been said that football is the ultimate team sport. It takes 11 players on defense, 11 players on special teams, and it takes 11 players on offense to be successful. There's one position that needs to be a leader more than any other position, and that's the quarterback. So today, you're going to learn from a former Division I quarterback and professional quarterback coach. Now, before we meet our today's guest, make sure that you push the subscription button and the notification bell so that you never miss another amazing conversation with another amazing professional. So, a little background on today's guest before we meet him. In high school, he was a three-sport star athlete in baseball, basketball, and football. In football, he was a quarterback, and he threw for over 6,000 yards and over 68 touchdowns. He achieved all New England honors in football and in baseball. His stellar performance on the football field earned him the scholarship to Syracuse University. At Syracuse, he played over 40 games as quarterback, and as well, he contributed in other roles on the field too. Because of his willingness to do other roles in many positions on the field, he was given a leadership award as a senior, which tells you a lot about this guy. And they say that football players aren't smart. This guy, all he did was achieve all academic, all ACC, and Big East honors. After college, he was a strength coach for 1 year at Northwestern University. The next 3 years, he was quarterback coach at St. Anselm College. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, where he helped them become one of the most prolific passing offenses in the country. He played and he trained under Green Bay Packers coordinator, Mr. Nathaniel Hackett, who remains a close friend and mentor to this day. In 2019, he became director of QB Country Atlanta, which is an organization that trains quarterbacks from the youth to the pros. Just recently, he worked with former Georgia Bulldog quarterback Stetson Bennett and Jake Fromm. When he's not coaching quarterbacks, he likes to stay active. And proving this, back in 2015, he picked up a little fun sport called jiu-jitsu, and in 24, he became a black belt. So I'm not going to mess with this guy and call him a little sissy quarterback. He's a tough guy. He's more than just talk the talk. He walks the walk. It's an honor and privilege to welcome to the Pro Talk podcast none other than Mr. Charley Loeb. Charley, how are you today?
I'm good, Rob. Thanks for having me on today. How are you?
Well, I'm great. It's fun to talk to you here, and I know you're going to share a lot of great leadership lessons from being a quarterback and what you see working with today's kids too. So let's get right to it. It's football season now. Everybody wants to know, what does it take and what are the ingredients to make a great, winning, successful football team?
Yeah, so I think, unpacking a lot of stuff there. What it takes is so much more, I think, than maybe what we perceive of. And a lot of times in simpler ways. If you look at the team, like you said, football is definitely the ultimate team sport. And what it takes for success, well, we've talked about the Patriots before. We've talked about Belichick before, right? And you look at the success that the New England Patriots had as an example over a dynasty in the NFL in a period where dynasties are strategically made to not exist, right? Free agency, the reordering of draft order, salary caps, all of these things were instituted so that teams could not have continued success year after year, so that there'd be, variety in terms of the winners. And a team like the Patriots were able to combat that almost better than anybody else. And I think one thing that you look at that was a tremendous example is, I don't think you could consistently point your finger and say they are more talented than the other teams they're playing. I think you could say they are relatively similar in talent, and maybe at times, and not at every position, but at many positions, maybe above average in talent or have more talent. But you could not say that they were just dominant in terms of their skill set to their opponents. So it kind of makes us think there's got to be more to it than just the physical part. And, the attributes away from just the physical part, that's what's going to make you the championship level team, right? The team that has the ability to execute the strategies, to understand what the team goal is, the team more than just my individual goal, and to execute I think, to exhibit some of the leadership qualities and the grit that are needed in adversity. So I think when you have leadership like that, I mean, Belichick, he was able to install that culture in the Patriots. And then I think that you saw great leaders of players like Brady and guys like that, and Junior Seau. I mean, they had unbelievable players, and Teddy Bruschi, that held that locker room accountable to that standard. And I think you now see Belichick at UNC, right, have his struggles. It's like, well, Belichick hasn't changed. Belichick is probably about the same guy. He's done it a long time. He's a professional. But it's about the guys in that locker room adapting to it, and then they have to hold the guys around them accountable. I think in today's culture, we have a lot of this instant success kind of idea. And if you want true greatness, it doesn't happen overnight, right? And I think you got to give it some time. So anyways, that's what I think you're going to see in the most successful teams in today's day and age.
So if you were a general manager and you've been given an open wallet, how would you create your team? Where would you start? What position would you start with first?
We're talking college or pro. I'm not sure.
Let's go pro. Let's go pro.
We'll go pro.
Because it's kind of crazy in college these days.
College is so crazy. And I was just talking with one of my buddies yesterday, who's another QB country coach. And we were just saying, we both are college fans, but watching the pro game versus the college game, the pro level is so crazy good. Just the players, it looks like you're watching a college game in fast forward if you really watch it. It's unbelievable, the talent difference. But great question. GM, starting up a franchise, man, I mean, that's so tough. You have to say quarterback first, because I'm a quarterback coach, right?
There you go.
Say quarterback first, and you got to be able to invest in that guy. And I think it's a different guy that is the guy that you're going to invest in if he's the first overall pick versus if think about like the Patriots didn't have the first overall pick for Brady for his success. And he was quite successful, but you should invest all your money in Tom Brady for sure. Whereas you take like the Bears with Caleb Williams, right? Like the Bears were an objectively bad team. They had the worst record and they chose the most talented guy. So what type of person you're choosing with that, where am I going to allocate my money, has got to be the right guy. I need to invest in a guy that would be tough enough to lose a lot of games the first couple years. Not just the most talented guy, but a guy that won't break. I think we've seen think of Derek Carr, remember him? Or David Carr, actually. David Carr with the Texans. #1 overall pick. He got sacked the most times ever. And he was, not that he lost his talent, it's just like, he got punched in the face so many times he just couldn't take it anymore, and you broke that horse, right? You hear that? I think you need a quarterback that basically get knocked down 8, stand back up 9, right? You need that guy. So I'm finding that guy. I'm going to put as much money into him as possible.
Well, you mentioned something there that if I was a college coach and I've got some young stud, no matter what sport, and he's coming to the next level, I want to ask him about how he got his butt kicked and how he improved from that, because no one's just going to win. Everybody can be a front runner when you've got confidence. I want to find out. And that's what you said about the pros, that these great guys come in, they're going to lose.
And that's the structure of the system. And I think, by the time you've reached that part of the filter, you are in the professional ranks. Your talent level is so on par with the other guys that are, all of y'all are just mega talented, mega skilled. And the differentiator does become a lot of that aspect. And the filter doesn't work that way until the professional level. If you're on the best middle school team, you might matriculate to the best high school team, which then earns you a scholarship to the best college team. And then if you're the best player on the best college team, you're then strategically put onto the worst NFL team or whatever sport. And the person that's going to have success is not the person that can only produce success when things are going good. There's a resiliency of the player that needs to understand, I'm on a terrible team, and we as a team sport need to be able to overcome this. And that to me, by the time you reach that point in the filter, is more unique and rare than the talent, because by nature, the talent is there because you've reached that part of the filter. But those that can endure the challenges and failure, that person is much, much rarer than the rest. So talent is a prerequisite. The toughness is that's what makes it happen. That's the magic.
So everybody's talented, but it's that toughness. I love that.
No doubt.
So before you hit the big time, Division One, but you said you played football, baseball, and basketball growing up. Your earliest memory, 5, 6, 7. What was the first sport you played?
So I started playing football when I was 6 or 7. That was like first grade. That was always my passion, love. Like I just loved football more than anything. It really was like the thing that just called me. Like I think when you're a little kid, you want to be an astronaut. I always just wanted to be a football player. And then if somebody asked, introduced me as a little kid to, whatever, your aunts, your uncles, or cousins that you never see, they're like, yeah, this is Charlie, the football player. So
Nice.
that was like my identity. That was my everything. And then I played all the other sports. Really athletic family. Funny enough, I don't think I've even ever told you this, but my stepdad is a tennis instructor.
Nice.
So I never played a lot of tennis growing up. He coached college, and I was a big fan of the teams that he coached. He actually won a national championship as a coach at a school called Washington College in Maryland, a little D3 school. And so I got to be around the team environment a lot, even though I wasn't like playing a lot of tennis. And he'd take me on the courts, and he would give me lessons, when I was really young. And those are actually some of the hardest practices I can remember as a little kid, because he would be. I remember being on the court just like crying, actually crying as like he's instructing me, and I'd go to football practice later, and tennis was a wimpy sport, so then I would go to football practice later, and like I was like, oh, I'd be so grateful. Because like I'm like, oh, this is so much easier than what I'm used to. Like no one's no one's talking to me the way that I've been talked to. And yeah, so funny enough, I would say I'm a football player, but share that with you. Tennis definitely had a little bit of an impact early on. And you know what? Maybe that's the reason why I stopped playing tennis for about 20 years.
It was tough. That's great. My goodness. What did you start playing baseball and basketball? Was that like middle school or elementary school?
I played all the sports as young as I could. My parents were just big believers in that, and I was just never sitting around in the house. Like it was just and I think nowadays you see a lot of kids with the specialized sport. And actually, I grew up in a really small town, literally like they say one stoplight town. Literally, when I first was there, we had one stoplight, and then the big deal was we got a Burger King. That was a really big deal. So there was no like travel this or all stars that. We took everybody from the county and we just made one team because that was all the kids needed. So everybody just kind of played every sport. So I played all the sports they offered. I played soccer because they offered soccer. So whenever it was that season, I just played whatever sport they were offering. And then I always knew like football was my favorite, but I wouldn't stop me from going and play baseball in the off season.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting because I've met a few professional athletes and I always ask them, what did you play growing up? And they always mention multiple sports. And I think we're crazy, just especially down south, just because we can play
Yes.
baseball all year. We don't have to play baseball all year or soccer or whatever. And it becomes so specialized. I think kids get labeled as a soccer player or a baseball player at age 7, 8, and they should be playing a bunch of different sports.
Yeah, and I don't know. I never knew like maybe a sport like tennis or baseball. They're so skill oriented, right? Like the skill of hitting that tennis ball or hitting a golf ball or hitting a baseball, like that's really, that's tricky. That's a tough, very finite sport. Football's a little more like, especially you can get the job done multiple ways. Maybe if you're a quarterback, you can run, or maybe you're good at the deep ball, or maybe you're good at just the underneath throws. Like I always thought like you could get away with a little more. The game was a little looser, not as strict as like tennis, or like everybody looks about the same in tennis, the way they hit the ball. Maybe not to insider, but to an outsider. Like everything, whereas Peyton Manning and Michael Vick don't look the same to me.
Right.
But that's again, maybe that's just from an outsider perspective.
Do you remember your growing up? Sound like you had some great fond memories of a super. youth experience in sports, which is awesome. Did you have any tough coach growing up or a tough mentor other than your stepfather on the tennis court?
Yeah, a ton. A ton. Almost every coach growing up, so many coaches that I'm just, I'm a coach now, and all the coaches that I'm most grateful for were always the toughest, honestly. Like, you- they would get the most out of you, and in the moment, maybe you wouldn't always appreciate, but yeah, like third, even like as a really young kid, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh grade football practices, like those coaches aren't very knowledge coaches. Like it's probably somebody's dad, or it's probably maybe a guy that played some football. I remember my fourth grade coach, Dave Bozart, still. The guy never played football. There's no way this guy played football. Like he was 108 pounds, I think, and he was mean as a snake. But like, there was something to that energy that man to this day, like I still carry. I was coaching an eighth grade team on Saturday night, actually. I'm kind of like an analyst, I guess you could say, for this team, and it's an eighth grade team, and they were beating Wheeler. It was Cambridge versus Wheeler. They were winning like 42-7. It was just a butt kicking. And there were the guys after the field goal, after the PAT went in, they're walking off the field, and then we're up 35 points, and I'm just screaming my ass off. I say, you run off the field. Like, I'm sure you know it too. There's a few things that are just like, maybe it's when you're really young and it's instilled in you, or maybe it's just an impactful coach in you. But there's a few things that if they happen, like my shoulders tense up, it's like the hair on the back of my neck stands up. And if I can't watch a guy walk on a football field. I can't. If the kick goes up, you run off the field. And if you're going to go celebrate, and then run off the field, whatever it is. But there's no like walking from the dang middle of the field to the sideline. And I was just like losing. I think all the parents were looking at me like, what's wrong with this guy? But that's something I remember from the first time I ever heard that was Dave Bozart, fourth grade. And it never left me. And I think it served me well.
Standards, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, growing up as a kid, what was your favorite victory in sports? It could be any sport.
Favorite, man, one of the biggest memories I ever had was it was third grade. I was playing quarterback, and I played a lot of positions. I didn't just play quarterback. I played offensive line, I played wide receiver, I played linebacker, and I was getting to play quarterback this game. And so that was cool because I always wanted to be quarterback because I just liked throwing. I don't think it was quarterback that I cared that much about in the beginning. I thought it was cool to throw it because nobody else got to throw it. And then my dad came up, and my dad was at the game, and they called like a quarterback sweep. And I ran like a 60-yard touchdown. That was my first touchdown. It was just cool for me. I remember to this day still, like my dad being there watching me, and I ran 60 yards for a touchdown. Like I'll always remember that one. That was a cool one. But yeah, that was a big one. Just I think as a kid, moments like that can be even more way more memorable than wins and losses. Like there's so many games you're gonna lose, and there's so many games that you win and you just forget about, like just whatever. But there's moments, like you're in the locker room with your teammates, or something happened, or for me that was a big one, scoring that touchdown when my dad was in the stands. Like I always remember those.
Do you have a painful loss? Like, did your team lose in the championship or go back? Hate to bring it up, but you had this touchdown. Did you fumble? Did you do something terrible? Give me a bad moment you had.
Yeah, some tough ones. In high school, tough one was, the first I'll start with is we basically lost kind of the structure of our high school football system is probably different than definitely here in Georgia, but more or less we kind of lost 3 state championship games. Yeah, so kind of like that sophomore, junior, senior year. We were bad my freshman year. I got to start my freshman year, and we were just really bad. I didn't start because I was good. We were just bad, honestly. And I got to play, and then we got way better, and we got to the point where we kind of got to go play in these state championship games. They called them like bowl games. Anyways, we got our butt kicked like 40-0 the first one, And then the next two we lost by like one touchdown and then maybe one field goal, I think. Yeah, each loss is tough. I remember my freshman year losing all those games, but then like that next year losing that state championship game, it was like, okay, you got your butt kicked so bad that it almost didn't hurt. But then, you were just like, what just happened? And then junior, senior year, those really hurt when you're like, man, we were this close. And it's like our arch rivals, the same team both years, and we lost both those. Yeah, those definitely hurt.
I remember Derek Jeter being asked, what season was better. And the question was, you got to the World Series that year and what season felt better? And he said, how do you rate losing? We didn't accomplish winning the championship. So it still felt like a horrible defeat. Didn't matter that you made it to the World Series. Sometimes that makes it more painful because you're at the championship and you didn't get the job done.
Yeah. I mean, the winning, like, I think, was it Scotty Scheffler that came out with that quote recently? It was like, he was talking about winning, and he's like, as soon as you win, like, it's over. It's just over, right? Like, you're already like, all right, what am I doing for the next one?
Right.
It's fleeting. And Belichick has, I don't know how, I'm not even a Patriots fan at all. And, but we keep talking Belichick. Maybe he's won a lot of games. But I always remember there was a quote from him that's great. And they won the Super Bowl. And he had to give a press conference maybe in February. It was like at the Senior Bowl, or that'd be in January. It was maybe at the NFL Combine. He did a presser. And they were like, Bill, how do you feel after winning the Super Bowl? And he was like, I feel like I'm 6 weeks behind in off-season preparation because I've been prepping for the Super Bowl. Because all these other guys had all this extra time to prep for the season. And I was like, if that's not the most what it really feels like when you're in the wash of it, like when you're in your playing career or you're in that competitive coaching career, as soon as it happens, you're already on to the next one. So I think once you're out of that quick, those cycles, when as a player, it's tough when you retire or you're done playing your sport. And it's like, you actually get to look back and reflect and say, wow, I enjoyed this period and this period was tough. But when you're in it, you're just always like, next. Junior year was pretty good. We won or we lost. Next. What are we doing senior year? So.
Did you, looking back when your team won things, elementary school, middle school, high school, did you get trophies for any finish other than first place?
Yeah, when I was like a really little kid, I look back at my, if I go back home and you got the junk drawer that your mom keeps of all your trophies, that you get those little medallion ones that hang around your neck. I don't think you get the big one, not with the stand, but you got the little metal one. It's like, you played on the team, you get that one. Yeah, I think I got a few of those still.
But you can remember the trophies for winning, right?
Man, it's just, you remember everything better from the winning ones. You remember your teammates better. You remember the games better. You remember, it's a difference. It's a total, you earned it, right? It's a total different vibe.
So diving more into what it takes to be a good quarterback and to produce winning. You could talk, I know, for days about this, but what are several of the leadership qualities a good quarterback needs to have other than being a certain size and you can throw the ball far?
Yeah. I don't think I've understood leadership that well. I think not when I was playing, not when I was even coaching position, but now, as a trainer of quarterbacks, I honestly feel like I understand leadership more now than I ever have. And every cliche of what I've heard of it is true. But it's kind of understanding what those cliches mean and not just accepting them for being cliche. So I really think that there is nothing glamorous about being a true leader. And immediately, leader, you think of William Wallace and Braveheart, or you think of Martin Luther King delivering a speech, I have a dream, right? You think of these great leaders in history. And those are glorious moments for sure, but that's just the moment, right? The actual form of leadership, it's like, I tell my guys right now, if you want to be a great leader for your team, you are a problem solver and you're a servant of people. And if you got a tight end that can't remember his plays, as a leader, it's your responsibility to problem solve and figure out How am I going to get that guy to run the right route? How am I going to get him lined up right? And maybe as a servant, right, that might be you during lunch break going and drawing up plays for 20 minutes. That's not glamorous, right? But that might be what it takes for your leadership skill. Or maybe it's you finding out, maybe I can pair them with these other guys. But you're always kind of problem solving for the team, not just yourself, for the team, what can advance us further. And then it's you doing a lot of the dirty work, or finding somebody else that can be a leader with you, right? And join the bandwagon and then get them going in the right direction. I think that's a lot of leadership, a lot more than people think. It's less speeches and pep talks, when the going gets tough and you're up on the bench and you're yelling at everybody. And it's more like on a Tuesday morning walking through, with your running back, where he's supposed to be on what play, and then helping that guy out.
That's awesome. It's the stuff you don't see other than the guy screaming and yelling on the sidelines. Everybody thinks that's leadership. But,
Yeah.
I guess that you just brought into, when they say he's such a great teammate, that's all the stuff you see, like you said, in the lunchroom. The guy who usually doesn't sit with this guy sits down, and you're making the most of the time with the teammates. That's great.
Yeah, I think great leaders a lot of times are really, really good communicators too. And I think that's an aspect that, I think great leaders make their teams better, not just themselves better. And so they make the guys on their team better. But I really tell my guys, if you're a great leader, you kind of are a magnet to other guys. And for instance, I have an 8th grade quarterback that I really think he shows a lot of great leadership qualities. And I've seen kids transfer to his middle school because he's such a good leader. And it's not because he's out on the streets saying, like, transfer my school. It's just like he'll go to camps and workouts, and he'll be such a positive energy. And he's a dang talented player too. People say, I want to work with that guy. And it's one of those things where people say, oh, he has all the luck, right? It's like, well, his qualities of him, others acknowledge, and it kind of like brings the luck to him. It's like sucks it in. So it's pretty cool.
He creates his own luck, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, a couple of, they talk about on TV, it's like, oh, they're really showing a lot of pressure on the quarterback. He's getting pressured. And they even have these statistics of times facing pressure. So you have to teach that to kids. Like, how do you handle pressure? And that's talked about, like, it's a cliche. You got to handle pressure. Is there anything specific you do as a quarterback coach? You don't have to give any secrets out, but you got to have your kids face some pressure. And what do you do? And what does that work on their minds as far as practice today? We dealt with handling pressure. How do you go about that?
Well, as a quarterback, when we talk pressure, we're talking about the defense rushing us, right? And I think we all understand pressure as the powers that make us feel a particular way when we're trying to execute, and we feel that struggle, right? I think, I try to reverse engineer it always. And I think in quarterbacking, I think in life, I think pressure, almost always pressure is created from a sensation of scarcity, a lack of time. Almost all pressure is created from a lack of time. So, if I gave somebody whatever problem, I just said, you have 6 years to solve this, and they felt like that's a lot of time, they feel less pressure. But, a responsible person that's not going to just procrastinate, I guess. But if I say solve it in 10 seconds, right, that creates pressure. So as a quarterback, almost always, it's a very simple game. Usually we have 1, 2, 3 reads that we make. Not many people are ever going to see more than 3 reads. And you got to look at the guy and you say, is he covered? And if he's kind of covered, you go to the next guy. If he's kind of covered, you go to the next guy, right? So it's like, if I ask you to do that with no time constraints, you would have no problem playing quarterback. It would be the easiest thing in the world. And then if I start adding time constraints, the less time I give you, the more pressure you're now feeling on each read. And that's when bad decisions get made, is when you can't handle that pressure. And the first thing that I like to do with the quarterbacks is, well, let's make sure that with no time constraint, we know what the right read is. So you take all the time away and you make sure they understand, because you'd be surprised we take some things for granted, but you'd be like, no, this guy is open in this picture. This guy's not open, whatever. What are we seeing? So we make sure with no pressure, are we making the right decisions? And then we just want to slowly start adding pressure of time constraint first. And what's funny with quarterbacking, we create time constraints through our footworks. Meaning, if I want to throw the ball quickly, a lot of people know these terms, right? If I'm under center, I'm going to take a 3-step drop. So by the time my 3rd footstep hits the ground, the ball should be leaving my hand. And that's, going to get the ball out of our hand in about 2 seconds, right? Whereas if I take 5 steps, that's going to give me more time to make these reads, more time for the guys to move downfield. I might get all the way up to almost 3 seconds, right? So if you can make the right reads in 2 or 3 seconds, well, you can imagine 2 seconds is actually harder than 3. So, the less time, the more pressure they feel, but make sure they're making the right reads. And then we add the pressure of the time constraint of their footwork. And then once you say, okay, they're good on air, they're good with just their footwork, now you start adding, some of the externals, right? Like, can you still make these reads when I'm trying to distract you? Maybe I'm distracting you with a pad that's hitting you a little bit, or a pad that's, in your way a little bit. And that's how you just gradually add layers of pressure to the decision-making process for quarterback training.
So you mentioned, I was going to ask you about this in your training time, and it might be situational based on the player you have. Do you focus more on footwork or more on the arm mechanics of throwing? Or is it a combination thing of, I saw a left-handed Charley Lowe backpedaling on the ladder drills and then throwing a ball, and I thought, wow, that's a little bit more challenging than just backpedaling in the ladder drill.
Yeah, I think, the arm mechanics stuff, you got to be really, really, you want to make sure you're doing that at the right time of year, if anything. You want to make sure, I wouldn't want to be messing with the guy's arm in the middle of the season. There's a lot of muscle memory that's involved in creating those patterns. And even if he's not, you probably see this all the time. Inefficient strokes that are very consistent will win. Inefficiency, but consistent, you can create winning formulas. And the winning formula will look different. I'm sure if you have the worse stroke you have, the better tactically, strategically, and physically, in terms of running things down, you would have to be to win, right? If you have the more advanced stroke you have, the more you can manipulate the ball to do whatever you want to do. I'm sure there's some 80-year-old that can barely move his feet and just has this young guy running around all over, and through his, superior mechanics can be more effective. For the most part, we're going to mostly focus on footwork and strategy, even out of season, because the stroke mechanics, that's a tough thing to attack. There is a personalized level to things. There's certain things you want to see him do, like some checklist things, but I think it's kind of like a pitching motion. It's kind of like a batting stance. Some of the main things are they kind of in these athletic kind of foundational positions? Are they balanced? Do they have great posture? Do they have the ability to kind of exert force on the ball, right? Or do they have the right idea of what they want to do with the ball, spin it, is the ball coming off cleanly off the hand? But those things almost are like a byproduct, the throwing mechanics, of just good foundational athleticism. And yeah, that's kind of where we leave it a lot.
So I think I know the answer to this, but I'll let the expert answer. Is it arm strength or accuracy would be more important for a quarterback?
No, it's no question. It's accuracy. It's accurate. It's accuracy 10 out of 10 times. And again, it's requisite arm strength. You have to have requisite arm strength. You can't be throwing the ball 20 yards downfield and say, well, I'm very accurate. It's well, you got to probably have a little more than that.
Right.
I remember I was at a camp in college. I was an athlete at the Manning Passing Academy, where they invite all these top college quarterbacks, and I got to get there somehow. And I was warming up with this other quarterback, and there's 25 of us there, college guys, and it's warming up, especially in college. It's a pissing contest, right? Who can throw this ball harder? and I'm warming up with this guy, and we started at 10. He's a lefty too. I'm like, that's cool. There's not a lot of lefties, especially back then. Then we back up to 20, and my ball's still boom, and his ball's kind of like, arcing a little bit. Then we're like 30, and like my ball's still kind of like boom, and his is like really arcing now. We get to like 40, and I got a little arc, and I'm telling you, his was max distance, just trying to get to the target. And he could throw the ball probably about 3 yards farther, so maybe he could hit 45 yards max. The guy's name was Kellen Moore. Didn't know it at the time. Kellen Moore had every NCAA record, every single NCAA record from Boise State. Played in the NFL for whatever, how many years, 10 years, I don't know. Day he retired, became Dallas Cowboys quarterback coach. Now he's the head coach of New Orleans Saints. So, yeah, that guy, and there was me, boom, rocking the ball, thinking I'm the man.
Yeah.
Just, again, requisite strength, just from that anecdotal evidence, about 45 yards of throw power plus supreme accuracy.
Right.
You can probably make it pretty far in the position.
Okay, so you hear this on TV. It's like this quarterback can really hit the second level.
Mm-hmm.
What, for anybody that doesn't know, what in the world is the second level?
So look at the defense, right? You got the D-line level, then you got the safety or the linebacker level, right? And then you got the safety level behind it. So the second level would be, the first level would be like any throw that's right in line with the D-line, right? So that's kind of the throws that we take. If the defense always backed off, we just kind of throw it straight to the guy, right? Really quickly. And then the second level, right, it's the layer behind it, which is really tough to hit because you got defenders in front on the first, and you got defenders behind in the third, and then you get inside of the second level itself, you have defenders spread throughout. And you could imagine if the defense all backed up 15, the first level is now bigger. It'd be really easy to just hit the first level. If the defense all smushed forward inside of 10 yards, it'd be easy to throw over everybody's head to now what would be the third level, right? Behind everybody's head. But to hit that middle level, to hit inside the second level, if you can do that, you're going to play a long time in the NFL because you have to have the ability to throw over first level defenders, to have the ball drop inside of third level defenders, and then throw between second level defenders. So that ability is pretty awesome. It's very tough to do.
That's interesting because you hear that on TV, and then some of these analysts are great about drawing it up, and you sit there on our couch and go, "Oh, why couldn't he do that?" But I guess, what'd you say? 2 seconds, 3 seconds, and you've got 3 primary reads, or
2.2 and 2.7 seconds, for quick game and drop back, and then and then that's where talent is great. But think about these second level window throws that we're talking about. Most of them are between 5 to 15, 5 to 20 yards maximum. And I look at a guy like, there's some guys with all the talent in the world, Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, or Joe Milton, or Justin Fields. You see these guys that can just, with the football, your jaw is just on the ground. Those guys are great at throwing the first and third levels. If their guy's wide open, they're going to rip a hitch route. This is simple throw. They're going to rip a hitch route, 5 yards downfield, boom, wide open. He's going to hit the guy. They're going to throw it over everybody's head, no problem. All right, if it takes 75 yards for me to do so, I can do it. But the second level requires so much anticipation and timing and mastery. You can't skill that, or you can't just be talented. It has to be a byproduct of understanding your players, their players, film study, the talent that's needed. Breeze, Brady, Manning. That's what takes second level throwing. Rodgers, right?
Yeah.
It's guys, at the end of the day, if you want to say who's going to make it at quarterback, just ask this one question. It's not about who's going to complete the ball on 1st and 10. It's about who's going to complete the ball on 3rd and 8. That's your question. 1st and 10, I don't know, throw it deep over everybody's head or throw it shallow. But 3rd and 8, you got to sit in the pocket and you got to find a guy that's 9 yards downfield. If you have a guy that can do that a lot, he's going to be a really good quarterback.
So when I'm a quarterback and I come up to the line of scrimmage, I've got all the talent and all the physical, good footwork, good arm. What are you instructing me to do? What, you see people, the quarterbacks come up and they start doing this, and it's like you hear on TV, they're reading the defense. Okay, what is the first thing I need to check out when I come up to the line of scrimmage?
Well, there's levels to that according to your age, obviously. Middle school, what we're looking for a middle school or a high school or a college or a pro guy, obviously the higher you get, the more is going to be put on your plate. So my first question would be like, what age am I working with? You talking high school or are you talking
Yeah.
NFL?
Well, I don't know. That's the thing. It's like that makes a lot of sense that, you know, watching the game last night, I guess it depends on the situation. Somebody said something last night about, well, he's checking out the safeties. Why? Because it's a 3rd and 15. Just about everybody in the world knows he's trying to throw the ball.
So let's start with like a high school guy, in a very common high school system, which is like, it's going to get the training wheels on you. So then, they're going to ask you more in college and then more in the pro. In middle school, at the youth level, they're going to call play and you're just going to run it. You're just going to do whatever the coach tells you to do, probably. At high school, they're going to start giving you a little bit more responsibility. There's different systems. Football and quarterbacking, if you can understand, it always comes down to math of numbers and angles. Numbers and angles make up football. That's all it is. So, for instance, it's an 11-on-11 game. Say I'm the quarterback and I hand the ball off to the running back. I have one guy carrying the ball. I have one guy, me the quarterback, doing nothing. That means I have 9 guys blocking. So I have 9 blocking, 1 running the ball, 1 quarterback guy doing nothing. So I now have 9 blockers, 1 ball carrier, going against 11 defenders. So now they have 2 more guys than I have blockers. So if they position their 2 guys correctly, there's no way that we're ever going to get any yardage, right? Like, there's just 2 guys that I can't account for. So if their angles are good, I'm getting no yards. So more or less what we're doing is we're trying to, a lot of times when we get up to the line of scrimmage, say we're just looking at the run game, we're just making like, hey, how can I get it so these numbers or these angles start working better for me? Can we get these, say the 2 extra guys that I was just talking about, can I get them over to the left and now I'm running the ball to the right? Now, okay, they got 2 more tacklers than I got blockers, but I'm running the ball right and those guys are lined up left. So now I'm good, right? So we're doing a lot of that. That's really what it comes down to. It's a fun
Awesome. I never thought about it that way. That's really cool.
Just think numbers. Now, think of this. That's me being all run dominant, right? If you have 9 tacklers and then 2 extra guys, behind those 9, we got 9 on 9, right? I got my 9 blockers and you got your 9 kind of defenders. Then you got the 2 extra guys that can't block, right? Well, that's everybody at the line of scrimmage. What did we just talk about? Well, you put everybody at the line of scrimmage, I should now throw the ball over everybody's head, right? Because your 3rd level is too big now. So what teams will do is, well, now I got to take one of those extra guys. Now I got to put them really high. I'm going to put them as a safety. And now that way, if you try to attack my 3rd level, I got a guy back there. But now I only have 1 extra tackler. So now there's more pressure that we were talking about. There's more pressure on the low tackler that he's got to go make the tackle because he doesn't have his buddy down there, right? And now there's more pressure on the high guy. Like, you got to cover all this field because there's nobody else back there to help you either. It's when we look at the safety level, right? Just imagine. Look how simple these numbers are, right? We're 9 on 9. And you don't want to just give me the chance to throw over everybody's head. So you put one of those extra guys back. Now it's 9 on 10. It's better than 9 on 11, right? And imagine I'm really good at passing the ball. Now you put 2 safeties back. Now it's back to 9 on 9. Now I can actually block all your guys. And your 2 guys, you're so worried about the defense or the offense throwing, those guys are far back. Now I don't even need good angles anymore. If I run the ball straight up the middle, your guy starts 10 yards back and tackles my guy, I'm still probably getting 5 yards.
Right.
Just off of not even playing an angles game, just playing a depth game, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the back and forth of
The
quarterback.
chess match, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun.
That is so neat. Now, okay, if you're a head coach, then this might have happened to you coaching youth. Quarterback throws a bad interception or a really stupid decision. What do you say to that kid coming off the field?
It depends. I think that's the best thing I could say. It really depends on what's the makeup of the guy, what's the situation of the game. I think one thing that you need to do is you need to be objective. You can't lie. Not just lie, but you got to be as, clear as you can, and you're not just putting blame on a guy just because you want to put blame on this guy, or you want to put blame on that guy because you want to put blame on that guy. I think too many coaches do that. It's like quarterback throws a bad pick, and they're going to go point the finger at everybody else but the quarterback. Well, the line didn't block great, and the defense made a good play, and the receiver didn't run the right route. And now you've totally absolved the quarterback of all responsibility. And then I think you see other guys that are just going to go right at the quarterback like, blah, 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 blah. And maybe all those things did happen. The defense did make a great play. The line didn't block, and there was no receiver downfield, right? So those are the two extremes, right? Like absolve him of all responsibility, put all responsibility on him. And the better quarterback you have, the more responsibilities that you can carry as a human, that's the better man you are. That's really it, right? The more that you can handle, that's a better human being. So if I got Tom Brady and he's running off the sideline after an interception that may or may not even be his, maybe it's 5% his fault, I'm probably going to rip into Tom because he can handle it. And it was probably, he can be as a leader, he could get the receivers into a better play. He could probably get the line into better blocking, and he needs that, right? Whereas if it's a really young guy that he has none of those leadership abilities, right? I can't give him no friction. I have to give him some amount of friction, but if I gave him the Tom Brady level friction, he's gonna break. So I can only give him as much like, hey, we gotta be protecting the ball. I can't kitty gloves him and lie to him, say it's not your fault, you're gonna be okay. But I can't I can't treat him like Tom. So that's how I treat it. I think it always depends.
Yeah. Does the when the quarterback comes up the line of scrimmage, you can help us that have never done this before. We at home here call out blue 42, looking around, and then like the Peyton Manning, Omaha. When you hear that, are the numbers calling out the play formation, or is it just static to make the defense think something, or is that each system?
It's a little bit of each system. So you mentioned actually that Nathaniel Hackett was a coach of mine for a long time, and he's been around the Packers and the Jets and the Broncos, now in the NFL, and Jags and Bills, OC head coach. And I'm actually meeting with him this afternoon. I'm flying up to New Jersey. I'm pretty fired up, and we're going to talk all things football. And cool opportunity for me. I've been studying 2019 Green Bay Packers offense to prepare for it. And I counted 15 different snap counts. 15 different snap counts that the Packers had just to snap the ball. Which is like, you think it's as easy as set hut or whatever. Yeah. 15's, a lot of different colors and numbers being thrown around, blue 42 or whatever you said. So a lot of that is timing for when the ball is going to get snapped, those colors and numbers. Maybe you want to throw a couple extra in to throw the defense's timing off. In the traditional way, I think a lot of times those colors and numbers could carry more or less information, or they could carry no information. They could just be placeholders for timing. If I say blue 42, set hut, maybe it's just a placeholder. But maybe you have like a live color. Common one was always like black. If you use black, it's like, all right, we're going to change the play. And you better hear that, right? That color black, because that's coming at you. And then maybe like, if I say black 32, that's like, we're running the ball to the 3 back in the 2 hole. That's like the old school way of doing it. You can imagine NFL, it's like very loud. And that would be like a very short processing time for a lineman, right? They got a lot of communication happening with their 5 guys. And it's like, if I'm up at the line and I just see I want to change it, black 32 said hut. Like, they're like, oh my gosh, I thought I was going to do a pass play, and now you're telling me to block to the right on a run. Like, you got to give these time to process. So most of the time, the audibles, they're a little bit slower, and you'll see like hand gestures with those two. because you got to tell the receivers out there too, and they can't hear your voice.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times you'll hear the quarterback kind of be like, blue 32, blue 32, and they might say something like easy, easy, easy. And then they'll actually give a play call, and they might like tap their helmet, or you might see them do something with their hands to the receiver. It'll be like, whatever, Wanda hot, and then they'll go and snap the ball. So a lot of times those numbers don't mean much, but sometimes they do.
I heard Matt Hasselbeck, where he was talking about the Omaha thing, and he said he was taught that when there's X amount of time left on the play clock, to screw up the defense, say something, which means nothing. But because there's 15 more seconds, we need to drain the clock. He said his kids were very young at the time and he didn't know what to say. The first thing that popped into his mind, he was reading his kid Dora the Explorer books. So he's like, Dora, boots, no swiping. And defense was like, what's he saying over there? So
By time, yeah.
So we at home are sitting there going, is that a real signal or are they just bluffing each other?
Yeah, well, I know that was always Payton's was Omaha, right? And Omaha was not an audible. Omaha was, this clock is running down and we need to snap the ball. Okay. So it's like he's making all those calls, and then like you look at the play clock, oh snap, I don't have time to say blue 42, blue 42. So you just say Omaha, Omaha. The next word out my mouth you hear, we're snapping the ball. So you see you see it so many times, right?
Right.
3, 2, Omaha, set up. Right?
Yeah.
And then that'd be it. So different teams got their different words that they'll use.
Which really makes it the home field edge, when you're the away team, I guess, with the noise.
Huge. If you have the best athletes in the world, right? And if you have them all lined up at the starting blocks in a track meet, and you're like, all right, you can hear the gun go, and then you have to react off the guy that hears the gun go, right? The guy that can hear the gun go will win the majority of time, and that's the level of freak athletes that we're dealing with. Mm-hmm. Now, the D guys are faster than the O guys, right? But we give the offensive guys, and think of the D line versus offensive line that I'm talking about in terms of this foot race. But think about my O guy is kind of closer to the finish line than the D guy. Even though the other guy's faster, my guy's starting closer to the finish line, which is me, the quarterback. And then he can hear the starting gun, and the other guy can't. So that's the value of changing up your cadence and of, like you said, home field advantage, right? Man, it's I don't think people understand how much of a valued commodity it is to have that. It's so important.
Now, what other sports would you recommend other kids to play? Like, for instance, if I'm one of your high school players and it's like, is there anything I should do next winter after football season before next spring training starts up? Is there another sport I should pick up to work on my footwork and not consume myself with throwing a football too much?
Yeah, I guess you could look at it two ways. I think a lot of times we have this approach where it's like, I'm sure you do this too. It's like, well, I want to get better at my footwork, so I'm going to do basketball in the off season. And that's 100% true, right? Like if your sport's got a lot of that stimulus, it's going to help. I really think, this is a personal opinion. I just think the best athletes don't look at it that way. I think the best athletes are like, I'm playing football, or they're going to go play football. That's their main sport even. And they're not like, oh, I'm going to go play basketball to work my footwork. And maybe that's in their mind, but a lot of them are like, I'm going to go play basketball to dominate basketball season. I'm going to go play baseball to dominate baseball season. Yeah, the byproduct in terms of the holistic picture is like, well, he's working his arm strength in baseball, maybe he's working his footwork in basketball. And if you can get those, I think if you can get those things to line up, it is very helpful for the athlete's development. But I think it's the wrong mindset for the athlete to ever think, I'm going to do this to help. I'm going to do X to help. I don't like that mindset. It's like, no. You're playing basketball to go be great at basketball. And, I just think that's the approach that you should have as an athlete. As coaches, maybe we can try to influence them, be like, if you think as a coach, he needs to work his footwork and he's like, I was deciding between basketball and track in the winter. And you could be like, go do basketball, man.
Right.
I think it's kind of wrong for us to be like, do basketball to help your footwork for that sport.
Yeah.
The most important thing is being a great competitor and the will to win, right?
Right. That's big. I love that. Part of the main concept of this Pro Talk podcast is learning from athletes and coaches like you, mainly because life is difficult. And it's not that Charlie woke up one day and he's left-handed and he slings the ball better than anybody. He's always going to be a great quarterback. We learn probably more from our adversity and our failures than we do our successes. Can you give us any type of personal adversity, whether it's on the football field or other sports or personally, that's helped you develop?
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's where sports are so good because you're guaranteed to lose, right? Like that's the one constant. Like there's nobody that's left without failure and losing and getting used to that. And like, you start looking at things and you say, oh, I had the successful career or I was a successful coach. And, it's like really like I could point to all the failures too, right? Like I honestly view almost everything that I've done as a lot of failures, but I don't see any of them as, like you said, inroads. None of them are the end of the road for me, the human being. They're all just like really good learning tools. And I've failed at everything. I like to just think I just keep trying to fail forward. And like I wanted to be a pro quarterback and I failed. And I was, I talked to you a little bit on this, but I was a, second string quarterback to a guy that was really, really good for a long time in college career. I didn't beat him out. He was better than me. He just flat out was better than me. And in my senior year, I was the starter. He graduated, I was the starter. And that's what I wanted to do my whole life, right? That's like I told you, since I was 6, I was a football player. We actually, all of our coaching staff left that year and we had a new regime and, I was a starter. It's what I worked my whole life since I was 6 years old. Now I'm 20, whatever, 3 or something years old, 17 years. And, I got benched as a starter, not even in the fall, in spring. After like a week of practice, maybe, with practice is like 2 weeks in the spring, you get 15 practices, 2 or 3 weeks. And like, I got benched after like a week, and that's like, that's tough. And, I failed at my goal. And of that didn't mean I could stop competing or anything like that. It's a setback. And then you kind of let that emotional part pass by, and everybody's got emotions. Nobody's a robot. And you start logistically figuring out like, all right, where did I fail? Where do I need to improve upon? What do I need to get better at? And you take all this information in, and all that information in, and this was the next hard part for me. And I was learning, like from these failures, like, oh, this is where I messed up. Maybe I need to know this better. Maybe I need to act this way better. And you think, I want to apply this to my next objective, which for me was inside of football. But then my time ran out of football. So like I learned all these lessons. I'm like, I want to use them in football. That's the medium that I was used to. And then I had to graduate. And it's like, oh, I can't use it here. And that's kind of like another like depression. I don't mean like, clinical depression, but it's just like, man, I didn't get to go use all this information where I thought I needed to. And then time passes, the emotions pass, and you're like, all these lessons that I learned that I could have improved upon, that I was using to be a starter, it's like, I can still use those in my other pursuits. So I use them for my coaching pursuits now. It's like I learned all this stuff. And then as a coach, right, I go and coach, and I use all these skills and these attitudes and knowledge that I learned from my failures as a player, and I put them into coaching. And then, like we talked about, I had a couple good, really good quarterbacks, record setters, school record setters. I still felt like a failure. We were losing a lot of games. And I learned from those. And then I stopped college coaching and became, it's just this cycle of I'm failing, I'm figuring out what led to these failures. And then it's not just using those lessons in just that small lens of coaching or playing, but using those failures in the greater scheme of things. That's been definitely something that I've learned. It's just like these failures they're just great moments of reflection and teaching. Like keep using them for that.
Yeah. And we don't always recognize, like you said, you had the information. Now what do I do with them? You might not find that out until years down the road.
Yeah, I think you do see people get hung up on they learn these lessons maybe, and then I think you see these like disgruntled people a lot of times. They learn the lessons, but they only think those lessons apply to the one aspect of life, right? It's like, oh, if I just knew what I knew now, I would have won states back in,
Right.
E8. It's like, well,
Yeah.
it's like, hard work, dedication, whatever it is that you learn, you still got a lot of opportunities that you can use that to.
Right. I appreciate that. That's great. And I want to be aware of your time. I know you got to catch a flight. Just a couple more quick passes here for you. Um, who's your all-time favorite football team?
Oof. So, well, I grew up yeah, I say I'm more of a college guy. I grew up a Tennessee Vols fan. Funny enough, they they beat my Syracuse Orange this past season. So, but now I'm more of a Syracuse college guy. But I was a Tennessee guy, and because I was a Tennessee guy, I was a Peyton Manning guy. So I always root for the Colts and the Broncos.
There you go. So is he your all-time favorite athlete?
But yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
That preparation, you learned a lot from him. Huh?
A lot of posters. Yeah, a lot of Peyton Manning posters
Now, you can say Peyton if you want, but who's the best quarterback you've ever witnessed in person?
in person. I guess I never really like saw Peyton to that level where like I saw him preparing and stuff. In this role of quarterback trainer, with some draft prep stuff, I've gotten to see a lot of really good guys that we've trained, at least inside of our company. We've had a lot of first round picks, not a lot, but quite a handful. Bo Nix and at Manning Passing Academy, we've seen incredible talents. Joe Milton throw the ball 85 yards or 90 yards or something. Brock Purdy's been there. Joe Burrow's been there. Uh, Seen a lot of really talented guys there. A guy that I've had a lot of exposure to that might surprise you, and he's having a lot of success now, and I've seen a lot of his training in person, is Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones, I tell guys this, Daniel Jones in person, in training, is so dang impressive. Like he's so sharp mentally, but physically and technically. I watch him do the drills. I'm like, gosh, this guy is really, really good. So I'm happy to see the success he's having with Indiana. Indiana Jones, I should say.
There you go.
Indianapolis.
Starting out pretty well this year. All right. So beyond football, and it could be football, who's the greatest team of all time?
There's been some dynasties, right? My wife, was listing off. She was reading some posts, I think last night, of Nick Saban's accomplishments at Alabama. Are you talking about like duration, like a dynasty, or like a single season?
Let's go. Like, to me, if we're at a bar, I would say, the barroom argument, who's the greatest sports team of all time? Mine would be the USA Olympic hockey team, just based on the political climate. And you have all these college kids playing against professionals in the Olympics. I just think that was unbelievable. Greatest sports team ever. Might argue a particular Boston Celtics team. That's just my bias, but the floor is yours.
Yeah, I'm a football guy, but I do think like when I watched that Last Dance documentary, like everybody, and I think one of those seasons that the Bulls were like 72-9 or something when they won the NBA championship with Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, and like to lose 9 games in if
Yeah.
it's 81 regular season or 82 regular season and whatever, however many postseason games that is, like that's incredible. And they were winning very dominantly. You don't see teams match that. It's hard to say. You have the undefeated Dolphins
Yeah.
team.
Dolphins, right? Yeah.
And it's like what they went 17-0, I think.
Yeah.
It's like well, Patriots. That one year they went 15-1 or 17.
Yeah.
They went. So I
Yeah.
don't know. I think I got to go with like when you have that many games, just like 80 games, and you only
Nuts.
lost 9. Like that's or whatever it was. It was single digits. That's
Yeah.
nuts.
All right. One more question. What's your favorite book that you've ever read?
Books are always I'm kind of whatever I'm reading now it automatically just goes to the top of my list. Like I'm a sucker for that, like recency bias. There's a great book that I love that kind of pertains to all this. I'm reading now the first book. I'm trying to think of the name now. There's one called The Talent Code. I think it's Daniel Coyle. That's a really fantastic book. Talking about uses a lot of stories of what led a lot of athletes or musicians, different people to success. And he's got a really good book that I'm reading now that I just started. It's called The Culture Code, but that's kind of a fresh start for me. But yeah, I like to read a lot of those books that talk about, the mentality of winners and how people got their stories of how they got there. Um, and then also, I love, just like as a kid, a lot of sports biographies. Remember just reading tons of Peyton Man, the Mannings have a good one. Terrell Davis, all these different stories. It's cool hearing people, path. But yeah, I like the talent code right now. That one's big for me.
I'll check that out. That's neat. Well, Charlie, I appreciate your time. I took some notes here and going through the editing process. I will be taking more notes because you dropped a lot of nuggets and a lot of wisdom on us. And I appreciate your time very much. I just want to go over a few notes that I took here that you gave us. Some good insights about successful teams. It starts with the resiliency of the player, how we have to overcome losing, endure the challenges and failure, which creates the toughness. And you are grateful for your toughest coaches. I think a lot of kids today think coaches are mean when they're tough, but it's about the tough coaches and the standards they set. This guy, Charlie Loeb, played NCAA football, but he ran 60 yards for a TD as a third grader, which is probably pretty cool. Wonder if there's any video of that out there. That'd be pretty cool, huh?
It'd be slow. I was not the fastest kids. That'd be a slow video.
Well, you said one of the things about leadership. I love that there's nothing glamorous about leadership because it's hard. And two things, you need to be a problem solver and a servant of people. I think we do that on a daily basis. It doesn't mean you have to be a quarterback to try to do that. And I love your quote, what can I do to advance us further? Number one, be a good communicator. The last thing I wrote down is that you're guaranteed to lose in sports, that we need to fail forward and the will to win and the will to compete, right up there with everything else. So again, Charlie, I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Rob. It's great. I love just talking shop, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, we'll do it again. So till next time, make the most of your time and hang tough. Have a great day.